Michael Beschloss now. He's the NBC News presidential historian. Michael, we had planned to have you on tonight to talk about how the new government will function, how the system will work, and what history can tell us about it. And now we're at a place unprecedented in American history.
We sure are, and you and I never thought that we'd see a night like this, did we, Shep? We're in a situation where, you know, the definition of terrorism is the use of violence, especially against civilians, to achieve a political aim. That was a terrorist attack on our Congress today, in our U.S. Capitol. And this is not a partisan comment. That was incited by the president, President Trump, who at midday gave that speech to that mob saying, march up Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol, take back our country, stop the stealing of this election. And then after they occupied the Capitol, and there's one woman killed so far and other violence used up there, he went into the Rose Garden and made a video saying to the mob that was up in the Capitol, we love you, we think you're very special. That's something that no president in American history would ever have done. Anyone else in something like this, a terrorist attack, would have tried to restore the peace as quickly as possible. Even tonight, I don't know what's going on.
We've watched aghast, you know, for years as things like this happen in other places, 100% confident that nothing like that could ever, would ever happen in America. It's just not who we are. And yet, on a fairly regular day in the course of recent events, with Congress doing its thing, beginning the, quote, peaceful transfer, all of a sudden, everything we know just collapses. You realize now how fragile the whole thing is.
That's exactly right. And, you know, this ceremony today, the counting of the ballots, is usually so perfunctory that you wouldn't even have referred to it if we had had our other talk tonight, you know, more than in passing, because that's something we just assume is part of the peaceful transfer of power. What you've got is a president who is claiming that the election was stolen from him. It was not. He's desperate to avoid being thrown out of office, which he will be in 2 weeks. Presumably, he's terrified that he's going to have a lot of financial demands that he cannot meet. He may be overwhelmed with lawsuits and other legal troubles. You know, he has a lot to benefit from staying in the presidency because he would have gotten a lot of immunity. So just for that, he's willing to throw our democracy potentially over the side.
I've been sitting here for 5 or 6 hours normally, or would have prepared for this interview, but it occurs to me that over the course of human events, maybe one of the hardest things for us to recover from was the division of the nation during the period of the Civil War. Yep. And do you have any reflections on that period of how we were in such strife and such trouble, and the way from which we recovered that might give us some sort of hope today?
Well, what it really depends on in our system, presidents have so much power. There's one figure in the entire system that the founders wanted to depend on to unify this country, which has all sorts of differences. They knew it then, we know it now, and that is the President of the United States. Donald Trump, you know, his idea of leadership has never had anything to do with unifying this country. Go back to his inaugural address about American carnage. It has been about pitting groups against one another. And so coming from the other side, if you have a president coming in, and we have President Biden, who is very motivated to try to unite this country and bridge the kind of differences we're seeing, our differences are nowhere near what they were in 1860 or in 1932 or 1940 or even 1968. If you have a president who's trying to help things restore order, that goes a long way.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.